Hi everyone, it's Rachel from the Shades of Orange. The shortlist for the BooktubeSFF Awards has just been announced and I want to share my reactions and reading plans. Now, I'm not planning on reading any middle grade or young adult. Honestly, none of the books in those categories are my interest, and so I'm just going to skip them all together. However, I'm very excited about the graphic novel category. This is the only category that I personally made nominations in. I had read a fair amount of 2016 releases, but I didn't personally feel like I read enough to make an educated choice in nominating in the other categories. However, in graphic novels, I nominated Descender Volume 2, which made the shortlist, as well as Saga Volume 6, which also made the shortlist. So really happy about that. I love them both, and at this point, I really don't know which one I would be voting for. However, I'm excited about the third nominee is Monstress by Marjorie, which I have not read, but I'm very interested in reading. I was actually hoping it would get nominated because I wanted an excuse to pick it up. I've seen the artwork, which is absolutely stunning, and I'm very interested in reading the story. I've heard it's a little bit confusing or hard to get into, so I'm happy there is going to be a read along so you can have a lot of discussion around that volume. But I'm very excited for all three of them. At this point, like I said, I have no idea which way my actual vote is going to go in the finals. So I'm looking forward to that. I will be rereading through Saga as well as Descender. It's a good excuse to do it anyway, as well as, of course, reading Monstress. And I'm, really looking forward to that. Please let me know, of those three, have you read them? Which one are you thinking of voting for? Please let me know. I'm also hoping to read and vote in the novel category. One of the nominees is the second book in V.E. Schwab's Darker Shade of Magic series, which honestly I had trouble getting into the first book. I put it down, so I don't know if I'm going to be trying to read that one. However, the other nominees are Ninefox Gambit and Obelisk, which I'm interested in reading both of them, so I'm going to be trying to read those during the read-alongs. Ninefox Gambit is a military space opera with a queer main character. I've heard amazing things about it. It's supposed to be incredible. I think it's going to be a hot contender for winning. However, the one thing is I've heard, even from people who read a lot of the genre, that it can be very confusing and complicated. And a lot of people said that they really liked it, but they didn't exactly get it. And that makes me nervous. I've mentioned that I still feel newer to the genre. I've been meaning to read it, but I've actually been purposely putting it off because I wanted to read some easier, more entry-level science fiction first and kind of work my way up to that one. However, I am going to attempt to read it with the read-along, which is going to be in the first month, and I will attempt to do that. So hopefully that goes well, so I'll be reading it in March. As I mentioned, the third book in novels is The Obelisk by Jemisin, which I definitely want to read, but it is a sequel, so I do need to read the first book, the 5th season, before going on to that one. So I'm hoping to read the 5th season right away. I just put an order in the library, and I'll hopefully read that in time to read the sequel. I'm really hoping to enjoy it. I'm a little less experienced in fantasy. I've again heard this one described as really confusing, but people also love it, so I'm hoping I can get into it and appreciate it, and I'm very interested to see what I think of it for myself because, like I said, I've heard amazing things about it, but it's not one I've heard described as kind of an entry-level fantasy. It's supposed to be a fairly complicated world, so we'll see how I do. Finally, in short fiction, I'm very excited to pick up Every Heart is a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This is a fantasy novella that has been all over BookTube and made pretty much everyone's best books of the year list for those who read science fiction fantasy. So I've been wanting to pick this up. It's been very popular because it has an asexual main character, which is not something I read about enough or honestly at all, so I'm very interested to pick it up. I hope I enjoy it. My only problem with this category is the other two books are both Brandon Sanderson novellas or short fiction that are based around his longer series. I have not read any Sanderson at this point, and I don't plan on trying to catch up in time to read the short fiction, so I really hate to vote in a category where I've only read one of the three nominees, so I'm very torn. I would like to know what other people think about the number of sequels in the award shortlist, just because I personally am finding it very challenging. I want to catch up and have read as many of the books as possible, but it definitely makes it a challenge, particularly, like I said, in categories like that short fiction, because Brandon Sanderson's works are not short to catch up on. Myself, during the nomination round, I did consider nominating the 6th book in the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey, which you know I absolutely love. But those books are really chunky, and I didn't feel like asking people to read 5 books in order to read my nomination was feasible, so I did decide to pass on that one. But I'd like to know, what do you think about that? Should there possibly be some restrictions on sequels in future years? I've also noticed there's a couple of authors who made nominations in several categories, which people aren't loving. I personally am not huge fans of those authors, so my feelings are kind of mixed, but I also don't think it's good to put too many restrictions on the awards. In a lot of ways, honestly, it's a popularity vote, so certain authors and books are just going to get more attention. But those are my reading plans. If you're interested in the books, the read-alongs, the awards themselves, I'm going to put a lot more information in the description. I think a lot of people already know the details, and there's the booktubers who are officially hosting it that can have the videos explaining each of the books with the authors and names. But those are my very chatty thoughts. If you're planning on reading any of these books over the next couple months, let me know and we can do the read-alongs together. Also, if you have read any of the books, particularly Ninefox Gambit or the Obelisk, please give me some encouragement. Tell me they're not too difficult to get into, because I am a little bit nervous to pick up those books, and I really hope that I will properly appreciate them. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Okay, bye.